Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's StepsBasic, and welcome back to my community show. Ow, yeah. So, announcements out of the way first. Welcome back, finally. An actual community show. This is great. I love it. So, we have made it through our Spooktober this year. Nobody got killed by the spooks and the scares and whatnot. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed everything I had to put out. Soma and freaking all the other games. I still have to finish One Night. Should only be a couple more episodes of that. But this is actually the closest I ever got to being completely done with Spooktober stuff by the end of Spooktober, which is great. I was kind of a little annoyed by the fact that I kind of ran out at the end there. But I do still have more edits I have to do on the Warframe video I was planning. I told you about that. We're going to take on Lefantis and everything. Be fun little storytelling, which I like. I wanted it out yesterday, but, well, might not have it out till next week. But anyway, no big deal. It's going to be fun. And let's see. So we're going to be starting back up with our playthrough of Detroit and God of War starting again next week. Yay. And yeah, back to business as usual. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Spooktober. Thank you all for watching my my scary story. I love doing that narration for you, and the whole, I guess I have a new ego there. My new alter ego being the storyteller. I like him. He cool. Very snazzy dresser, that's for sure. So let's talk about that, huh? Storytelling. Now, I've talked a lot about how when I play a video game, I play it for the story. I'm mostly in it for the story. And sometimes I can forgive a bad story if there is interesting, fun gameplay and whatnot. But there's a reason why I like stories. And much like my creepy alter ego said, I find them fascinating. Not just big, grand stories, but sometimes even the smallest stories can carry with them so much meaning and so much just information that you just don't even realize. I mean, you look at every single form of story that we've had in games, there's a lot of cliche, there's a lot of blah, 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 a lot of repetitive stuff that we're kind of used to seeing and everything, but we never really stop to think about the types of stories that we watch. Now, for instance, I watched the show Daybreak on Netflix. Brand new show. I watched the whole thing in the matter of a couple of days because it was a fun story. It was incredibly cliche down to, divisive, end of the world apocalypse sort of thing. Not exactly your traditional zombies, but still pretty close to. Everybody, the bomb hits, everyone factions out, and the factions hate each other. Very cliche stuff. But even still, they told it from breaking the fourth wall perspective. It was very Ferris Bueller. And that in a way made it fun, especially because they didn't just limit it to one character. I was watching this and I was like, I love this story, but I feel like they're trying to stretch it out too much. I feel like this would have been better for a movie. And that's something I find kind of interesting, Another thing I find interesting. But despite the fact that everything in it was very cliche, I would say even the ending was a bit cliche, but it was still a lot of fun throughout. Stuff I expected to see, stuff I understood, stuff I was like, oh yeah, I've seen this before. They still took the story and ran with it in a fun way, and that's what I liked about it. And while that show wasn't exactly something you're going to learn from, being that it was, mindless fun and whatnot, then you start looking at the smaller stories in life and everything. Like, you just sit down and you start talking with somebody. Something nobody does anymore because, honestly, we're all a little bit too anxious in our own rights to actually sit down and talk with anybody. I was sitting there talking with somebody yesterday, just out of the blue. And it all started with a quarter. Yeah. And she dropped her quarter, and then she's like, oh no, what happened? And she went looking for it. She's like, oh, my quarter. That's a whole quarter. I can't just leave that there, Ooh, that's a lot of money. And from that little story, you can understand a number of things about the person. And, that's not where the story ends, obviously, but, she ended up getting her quarter back, and then we laughed about not wanting to leave it because, the kids would probably resort to violence to get it from each other because we were at the school at the time. And that was a lot of fun. But, you think about that, why does a quarter mean so much? And honestly, it doesn't. Even to me, living in poverty and whatnot, the idea of a quarter doesn't tickle my fancy, but it's the fact that it's the largest denomination of coin, not counting the discontinued 50-cent piece and their various attempts at starting a dollar piece. The largest coin is a quarter. So we see that as a large denomination of money. And even us po folks, we don't really get all too excited about 25 cents, but at the same time, it's like money. We don't want to lose that. And that little conversation started a little bit of a story about how we don't like to lose money. Now, pennies, dimes, nickels, maybe dimes not so much, but pennies and nickels especially is like, oh, dang, I have a nickel. You never hear anyone say, oh, dang, I've only got a quarter. People are mostly like, hey, cool, I got a quarter. Of course, the spectrum of it might vary if you start looking at richer people who, don't see small denominations of money, no matter how small they are, as important. Actually kind of reminds me of something I read on Reddit, too, where it was one of those shower thoughts, and I don't generally like the shower thoughts too much because nobody ever follows the rules on that subreddit, but they were talking about how you could get $100 and, not even bat an eye, but if you lose a $20 bill, then it's the end of the world. I'm like, that's not entirely true, because if I get $100, I'm like, oh my God, $100, nice. But if I lose that 20, I tell you what, I freak out. Because that's $20, man. That's a couple of meals. 3 if I work my magic right. But that's the whole point of stories, You learn things about not only the people who were affected in the story, but the storyteller themselves. Look at what I'm doing right now. And that was the whole point of the whole bringing up the 25-cent story thing, was I talk about various different aspects of the story, including my love of 25-cent pieces. And that's one thing I like about stories, because they're not just limited to what's happening. A good, deep story will take you through not only worlds, but lives. It will open up entire universes to you. And then at the end of it, you learn things about yourself that you may not have known. You learn things about the characters that you may not have known, things about the storyteller, things about the world, and all just within the confines of one isolated incident within the world. And you're like, wow, that's cool. That's why I like to write, I love to tell stories. I actually made the joke once that Arizonans are good storytellers because there's nothing else to do in Arizona but tell stories. And I've noticed the proclivity of most Arizonans tends to lean that way. They tell stories, even if it's the simple and mundane thing like I just went to the store. Suddenly that story becomes an epic journey, and it's like, wow, how'd that happen? And it usually comes down to just how it's told. Which is why I tend to like stories in video games more often than any of the other aspects of it. But anyway, I figured we'd talk a little bit about stories on account of that was my big theme for Spooktober. And I loved it, but I don't really have a whole lot of time to talk today because, first of the month, so I got to go out and pay my bills. But That's it for me for today. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of the Community Show. Remember, if you have any ideas for other future episodes, let me know. I have my Stream of Consciousness will be coming up this next Friday. Probably going to be talking about my birthday because I tend to do that. I get a little wax nostalgic every time my birthday comes around. But apart from all that, thank you all so much. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go and poke that like button for me. If you'd like to see more from me, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And of course, as always, you're more than welcome to leave a comment down in the comment section down below. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can, when I can, if I can. You know all that jazz. And tune in next time for another conversation at another time. And until then, good night.